seen a lot of what I wish I would have known in my 20s videos, but I haven't seen one taken from the biblical perspective, because our early 20s and even going back to high school, so our teenage years, are such important formative years. And if we can get a little bit more wisdom and use that time to grow and make wiser decisions, I feel like we can save ourselves a lot of trouble in our 30s and our 40s and our 50s and not have to keep repeating the same lessons that God was trying to teach us in a past season in our life. Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jasmine and I post faith, and self-development content right here on YouTube. So if that is the type of content you are interested in, I really hope that you'll subscribe so you won't miss any of my future uploads. But for right now, let's get into the video. All right, so I'm really excited about this video because I've often thought about like what I would have done differently back in my early 20s, back in my teenage years, if I would have known what I know now. And of course, they all say hindsight is 20/20, and that's true. But I know some of us can look back and be like, oh, we should have seen that come in real time at the current moment. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what I wish I could have told myself back then to hopefully help some people make wiser decisions and grow and use that time more effectively right now. Your early 20s are a very complicated time because there's a lot going on. For a lot of people, they're finishing college, they're trying to figure out what they're going to do career-wise or applying for jobs, or, you know, sometimes your friends are in different seasons than you are. So maybe you're focused on your career, maybe your friend starts, you know, getting married and having babies and doing all that stuff. And so for different people, your early 20s might look differently, but there's one thing I feel like kind of goes across the board, and that there is a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of waiting, and I feel like in your early 20s, it's like when you're trying to figure things out, and so you're often thinking about the future, like when I get this together, when I get that together, like when I find that spouse, like when I have this, and then it's like, then I can be established, and then I can feel confident or comfortable in the season that I'm in right now. So your 20s is like, it's a waiting season. You're always waiting for something. You're always trying to figure something out. But what we do in that waiting period is really, really important, because in that waiting period, when we are waiting for God to bring us something, when we're praying for something that we haven't seen the fruits of yet, we can either spend that time praying or inviting God into the unknown and saying, what are you trying to teach me in this season? Or we can complain, we can try to rush through it because we don't want this waiting period to last forever, because we're right now people. We want what we want right now. But that's not how life works. We often have to wait for things. And when we're in a season that we're unsure of how things are going to go, we often try to rush through it to get to that more comfortable place of being certain about our career, being certain about what our family's going to look like, being certain in, you know, where we're going to go to college, grad school, and all that stuff. But what we do in that waiting period is going to set us up. So much time is wasted trying to rush through the different seasons of our life. What we need to do is learn how to slow down and pick out the different lessons that God is trying to teach us, because he's always trying to teach us something, reveal something to us, but we're always like, nope, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to get to that next level. I got to do that next thing. And it takes the joy out of the current moment that we're in. A lot of us don't realize that sometimes we are standing in the season that we prayed for years ago. But even now that we're here, we're not appreciating it. We're looking for that next thing instead of being grateful that what we prayed for has come to pass. And it's like we miss out, not miss out on the blessings, but we miss out on the realization that we're in it. We don't take time to really appreciate it. And so when we're trying to rush through those seasons, instead of rushing through it, we have to slow down. We have to invite God into it and say, God, reveal to me what I'm supposed to learn in this current season. What we do, we prolong the season, we prolong the hard times, the winters in our life, because we are not learning what we're supposed to learn in that time frame. And what happens is we're now in our 40s and our 50s struggling with something that we should have learned in our 20s. But we were too busy trying to rush through it. We didn't slow down. We weren't listening to God when he was saying, that's not for you, that's not for you, let that person go. And now we're still struggling with it. And that's what happens when we try to rush through things, and God is trying to take his time with us and mold us and shape us so that we're able to carry the weight of what he's going to bring to us in the future. So what I wish I would have told my younger self is to take the time to be molded. Take the time to be by yourself. Take the time to let God work in you, to prune out all the things that aren't going to be constructive to you in your future seasons. I feel like that is really important. And I feel like some of my seasons did last longer than they could have because I didn't allow myself to use them wisely and to use that time constructively to build myself up to be able to hold what God was trying to bring to me. I was just like trying to pray my way out of it. Like, God, take this season away. I don't want to do this anymore. And God's like, no, well, you still haven't learned the lesson. So I can't take you out that season until you do. And I feel like inviting God into it, praying and just letting him work through you like wholeheartedly. I know a lot of times we give certain areas of our life to God, but we don't give everything to God. And so I wish I would have gave everything to God in those seasons and just allowed him to work through me. So something else I wish I could tell my younger self is to be thirsty for the right things, because when we're thirsty for love and acceptance and attention, then we start making questionable decisions. But when we're thirsty for the right things, we're more mindful of our self-worth and respecting ourselves. And to touch on self-worth a little bit, that alone, I feel like if a lot of people could learn to have self-worth and self-respect and realizing that that doesn't come from anybody else outside of you and God, just respecting yourself, I feel like that alone could solve a lot of problems right there. You would not make the same decisions that you did before once you learn your self-worth and how to respect yourself. I feel like that can save you a lot of trouble. Like, you're not gonna let people treat you in a certain way in a relationship. You're going to realize that you deserve the best, you deserve more than what you're currently getting, and you're gonna make a move. But I wish in my early 20s and in my teenage years, I would have allowed my desires to become aligned with God's desires and his desires for my life, because I would just think about what I wanted to do, what I thought was best, and that's the decision, or that's the direction that I went, and I didn't ask God his feelings or his opinions about any of it. And a lot of times we can be in a certain season and we can think something is right, but if it is the right season and the wrong decision, it's wrong. But if it is the wrong season and the right decision, it is still wrong. We have to allow God to bring the right season and the right decision together, and then you really got something. And one thing I wish I was more mindful of is knowing that the enemy also knows the desires of your heart, and he can bring something to you that looks really enticing, that looks really good, and you can think it's God, but it's just a distraction. It's just to throw you off of the path that you're supposed to be on. And so we shouldn't use our own logic of what we think, like, oh, this follows this, it must be right. No, we have to pray. We have to ask God for confirmation. Is this what you have for me? Or should I just let this door close because I know you have a better one for me in the future? But we feel like, especially in our 20s, when things are happening to our friends or our families all around us, and we think that we're missing out, and sometimes we just try to hurry the process along, and something might look good, and we're like, oh, this must be my turn. This is, I gotta jump on this before this opportunity expires. But God controls everything, and his timing is perfect, and we just have to be still and trust him and trust his process. Otherwise, we're gonna get caught up and then end up in a mess that we're gonna end up praying to God to take us out of because we weren't patient. And sometimes I think when it comes to being impatient and trying to rush the process along, I feel like a little bit of that comes from trying to compare our lives and what we have going on to other people. We have, they're getting this and they have that going on. Like, what's wrong with me? But we should never do that because we don't know what that person had to go through to get what they have right now, or how hard they have to work, or what else they had to sacrifice for what they have going on right now. But also, the calling that they have on their life has nothing to do with the calling that you have on your life. So just because they might be experiencing growth and, in an area that you also want to see growth in, that doesn't mean that God can't also bring that to you. Maybe there are just a few lessons that you've got to learn. Maybe he's still preparing you in some different areas to bring that to you. So when he does, you are ready for it. You're not going to crack under the pressure. And so I wish I was more mindful of that, or I wish I could go back and tell my younger self that. Like, don't worry about what anybody else has going on. God has a specific course for you, and as long as you stay on that course, he is going to bring in all the different resources that you need to accomplish the goal that he put into you. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it, what they got going on. If you stay on your course, God is going to bless that. He's going to honor that, and he's going to honor your patience. And another lesson I wish I could go back and tell my younger self is to become comfortable with uncertainty. Because I think as people, we just want to know. Not knowing, it causes sleepless nights and stress and anxiety because we just have to know. But when it comes to the things of God, he is not gonna lay out the whole plan for your life, because then you wouldn't have to trust him. You know the whole plan, you can just go ahead and do it. But the Bible says that he is a lamp unto your feet. And what that means is that he is just going to give you enough light to take that next step. And then he's just going to give you enough light to take that next step. And that's what builds our faith with God, because now we have a track record, because we were going through this. It was hard. We prayed and God brought us through. And then we got ourselves into the next mess and we prayed and God made a way. And over time, that's what builds your faith in God. That's what builds your confidence. And, I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't need the whole roadmap. Like, God, just give me enough light to make that next step. And in doing so, you already know that because he did it before, he's going to also make another way. He's going to give you some more light so you can take that next step, and confidence because he's done it before. The testing of our faith, it brings perseverance. And if that was something that I was more focused on when I was younger, I wouldn't have spent so much time stressed and worrying about how am I going to do this? How is this going to work out? I would have been able to have more faith in God and more peace in my life, because I know that he's gonna make a way and it's gonna be all right. But that would have also prepared me for when I got older and then maybe some more complicated things going on in life, and maybe I wouldn't be stressed about this so much or worried about this so much, because I know that God has a track record and his track record is perfect and he's gonna make a way, and he's the God of a way. But overall, I wish that I was focused on the things that God wanted for me, and not just being selfish or arrogant and thinking that I know what's best. I wish I would have been sensitive enough to the spirit, like I talked about in my last video, to be able to understand when God was trying to warn me about certain situations and certain people. I wish that I would have allowed him to work through me and to prune out all the things that I might have been trying to hold on to that I thought I needed, but I really didn't need. It really wasn't going to help advance me to the next level. That is like a crucial time in your teens and your early 20s. And I'm not saying that you can't get these lessons in your 30s or 40s or 50s, but in setting yourself up for a better future, I wish these are some of the things I would have gotten when I was younger to make the later years easier. But another godly lesson that I wish I would go back and tell my younger self is to be the lender, not the borrower, and be a good steward over what God gives you. Because at the time I was like, I have no real responsibilities. The bills coming to the house do not have my name on it. And so I just thought I could just spend and spend and spend. And now I realized that if I would have saved and invested and made smarter, wiser choices with that money, I could have really set myself up. But in our early 20s, it's like we're getting that, first taste of freedom and being able to do everything that we want with our money and we're not have to ask anybody else for it, then we just kind of blow it. And I feel like that's the whole point for me making this video, is to help some people not have the same regrets that I did. Because I feel like your teenagers, your early 20s, like, they don't have to be hard. They don't have to be challenging. The problem is, I feel like we make it more challenging on ourselves by placing priority on the things that shouldn't matter. But when we're young, we're trying to impress people. So we spend a lot of money on clothes, or we buy a car that we can't afford and now we're in debt, or we get into relationships that aren't fulfilling or Christ-led because our priorities are on the wrong things. And so when I talked about being thirsty for the right things, that can fix a lot of those problems, because we're not looking for approval, we're not looking for love in the wrong places. We're focused on the things that Christ wants for our life, and we're trying to be spirit-led. And even though I didn't have these lessons back then, or maybe I wasn't even focused on it, I can now thank God for grace and for growth, because I understand that God can redeem the time. He can redeem the time of the years that I spent worried about the wrong thing, stressed about the wrong thing, investing in the wrong people. He can redeem my years of loss, and then he can make that up and make the seasons in the future so much better. Because the goal is to be a vessel that God can use. So it is really important that we take that time and we allow God to transform us and mold us and shape us and prune us, so that we can be a vessel that he can use to advance the kingdom of God. And I feel like that's not something that we place as a high priority when we're young, but I feel like our lives would be a lot better if we did. And so that is all I have for you today. I really hope that it blesses you. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, like, share this video with a friend, and I will see you all in the next one.